Ladies and gentlemen, Emee is about to come on and just rock your freaking world. She is brilliant. She's a genius. She's a psychology expert in just igniting people's greatness so they can really make a big impact and be the leaders and live the fulfilling lives that they are capable of. Before we bring her on, let's talk about the sponsored message. If you are a world changer, a leader, an entrepreneur, a visionary, an influencer, I love you. I love talking to you. I love surrounding myself with you. I love working with you, empowering you, coaching you. I love supporting you to get your message out on this 12-hour marathon, helping you do that. So if you want to do any of those things, number one, get your message out on the 12-hour marathon, send me a message. Would love to have a conversation, see if you are a good fit for our audience and our message and our mission that we got going on here. Number two, if you want support in creating your own platform like the 12-hour marathon, your own podcast, your own mission-driven, purpose-driven vehicle to get your voice out into the world like a podcast, I would love to have a conversation with you about that as well. I love working with our clients to help them get their message out. And lastly, number three, if there's someone on this 12-hour marathon who you want to connect with, who you want to grow with, who you want to have a conversation with, let me know. If you want, just connect with them directly, send the message. That's the easiest way. And if you want an introduction, I'm happy to do that for you as well. So connect with these people. They are incredible, world-changing human beings like Emee, who's about to come on and just blow your socks off, and Sienna, who just came on, Jason, who's coming on next. Like, it's an amazing, powerful day of becoming your greatest possible self. So make sure you stay tuned. Let's talk about the iTunes review of the week. This week, let's see who it's by. It's by Jay McVean. Jay McVean says, Chris is a force of nature. I met Chris in person and knew he was a very special person with a very clean and vibrant energy and a heart that fills the room. He's a joy to know and even more of a joy to learn from. I'm super grateful that he does what he does. Thank you so much, Jay McVean. I appreciate you. If you want to give us a review, definitely go to beyourgps.com/iTunes or search Becoming Your Greatest Possible Self in the iTunes store, and you can find us like that. Also, make sure to subscribe. We do release episodes just about every day, so you'll always be getting more empowerment, more upliftment, becoming your greatest possible self. And I just love being on the journey with you. Would love to hear your comments, your feedback. Make sure you subscribe, give us a rating, let us know how we're doing, what we can do even better. Thank you so much in advance for doing that. I'm going to introduce Emee in just a second. Before that, grab a piece of paper, grab a pen, be ready to take notes. She is going to share the wisdom and the science behind imposter syndrome, how to really embrace your true worth and overcome that self-doubt. Make sure you stay all the way through till the end of the interview, because you never know what one idea can transform the rest of your life. Let's introduce her, and then we'll bring her on the screen. Emee is a chartered psychologist and founder of the PAME Code, the PAME Code. Her passion is to help people embrace their true worth so they can live happy and fulfilling lives. Throughout her academic, coaching, and research career, she has worked closely with individuals and communities to unlock their full potential using simple and easy to apply methods for limitless success in life. She is the #1 best-selling author of the Psychology in Your Life book series, including titles such as The Imposter Syndrome Remedy, Change Your Life for Good, and Fear is Not My Enemy. She is also now helping aspiring authors fulfill their lifelong ambition to write and publish their own books with her flagship course, Self-Publishing Made Simple. And we are blessed to have Emee here with us today. Emee, are you ready to rock the house, Superwoman?
Yeah. Bring it on. Oh, thanks for having me, Chris. I'm super excited.
Thank you for being here. I'm stoked. I was looking at one of your talks at a university that you posted. I was like, man, she is just full of wisdom, and it's just awesome. You're just a powerhouse. I love listening to you and seeing you grow, and it's just an honor to be on the journey with you. So let's dive right into our theme of the day, Emee. The theme is, it's the little things that add up. And I want to hear, what does that mean to you? How does that show up in your world?
Little things that add up. Well, there are, in our life, we need to learn how to appreciate all these little bits and pieces that come into our life.
Yeah.
Having that sense of gratitude, no matter how small. And as you can see that if you practice gratitude, even the smallest thing, it will magnify. It will magnify, and it will just grow. I think in the in our area of self-development, there's this saying that energy flows where attention goes.
Yes.
And even all the smallest bits and pieces, it will grow if you put your attention in that. So every little bit really does matter.
I love it. You're just so powerful and concise, and always with the wisdom. It's amazing. So, Emee, tell us a little bit more for the listeners who are just tuning in, just getting to know you, who you are, what you stand for. I mentioned it a little bit in your bio and in your own words. Why don't you share with them?
Oh, yes. Okay. So my background is in psychology, actually. I've been, to be honest with you, that wasn't really my first choice as a career. I really wanted to be a doctor. In fact, I actually got into med school when I graduated from high school.
Wow.
But my mom advised me not to take that route because I was actually 15 years old at that time, and she said that I was quite young to go into med school. So she advised me to actually pursue psychology as a pre-med course. I took it, loved it, and pursued it. Just understanding how the human mind works, how it could affect our behavior and our interactions with others. I ended up coming here in the UK to do my master's, did my PhD, ended up having an academic career in psychology, becoming a university lecturer in psychology. But something wasn't quite enough for me. I was writing research papers, I was teaching university students psychology, but it felt as if it was limited. I was talking, within the four walls of the university, and I felt I know so much about psychology. Surely I can reach more people and widen my my influence.
Yeah.
So I've decided to write self-help books. And I did that last year. You already mentioned that. Change Your Life for Good, Imposter Syndrome Remedy, and Fear is Not My Enemy. And for me, I wanted to share psychology and the techniques that we know from psychology, share it to a wider audience, and so to use those techniques so people can embrace their true worth and flourish with confidence in life. So that's what I did, and now I'm also coaching, helping people to embrace their true worth so they can fulfill their fullest potential.
Wow. So I want to go back into where you were talking about you didn't feel like you were making the impact that you knew you were capable of. Why did you choose books as the vehicle to make a bigger impact?
Well, people actually do read books. Of course, people do watch TV a lot. They go on social media, but books, for some reason, it still has that personal touch. You can really get someone to focus their attention on a particular topic when you're reading a book. You can explain something in so much detail. You can share your own stories through a book. You can reach so many people through a book. And these days we can also convert our books into audiobooks.
Yep.
So if people actually prefer to listen, you can reach them through that platform, through an audiobook. So yeah, books, audiobooks, podcasts like this, Facebook lives and social media. That's a really good way to reach more people instead of just staying in the lecture theater and just teaching 100 students at a time. With books, you can reach, especially with Amazon. It's a really powerful platform. You can reach millions of people with your book in that way.
Wow, that's awesome. And I think it's really cool how you discovered that was your vehicle, because I think there's people learn in different modalities, right? And they can be visual, they can be auditory, they can be kinesthetic, like hands-on, different things like that. And I know there's like auditory digital, and there's lots of really cool, stuff and ways to meet people where they're at. And I think how you did it, it's super cool because you wrote the books, right? And then you can have it go into audiobook. You can vocally speak about it. And I think you can also take the content and the exercises and the gold in the book and even turn that into a video course. And I see that you are becoming a master at repurposing content and being able to serve people in a bigger way like that, with courses, with books, with webinars. And I know you've done interviews and you just deliver massive value in your group. And I think that how you do it, you're relentless and tenacious and giving the best. And it's really, really cool. I love watching you and seeing your journey and seeing you impact lots of people.
Thank you. Well, that's a way to do it. If you're going to do something, you have to do the best that you can, and to serve your audience. So I wrote the book. I also offer a Facebook group. I have a group where people can share their experiences if they have any questions about the book, or if they'd like to share their stories on how the book, on how they apply the techniques in the book. They can share it there, and it's actually a growing community, and we're actually becoming really good friends in the community, in the PAME Code community on Facebook.
Wow. So they can just search for PAME Code community or PAME Code, and that's how they would find it?
Yeah, it's on Facebook actually. And if people go to thepamecode.com, all of the links to the books, to the community, and all sorts of support will be available there.
Awesome. Well, I love that you're sharing with us how we can take those next steps. And I know people are going to want to know, what will they find in there? And specifically today, we wanted to talk about the imposter syndrome. So tell us, why did you become fascinated with the imposter syndrome in the first place?
Well, to be perfectly honest, I actually experienced it myself. Surprise, surprise. Well, it's true. People find this surprising because, as I've mentioned, I did my undergrad, master's, PhD, I did postdoc, university lecturer, wrote books, and so on. And yet, I still feel as if I'm just fooling everyone into believing that I know what I know. Mm-hmm. And I feel like a fraud, like when I tell people things about psychology, and they will see this baby face. And what does she know? That's I feel like, am I just fooling everyone into believing that I'm this expert, that I know what I'm talking about? So I looked into this to this topic, imposter syndrome, because I actually do know that a lot of people experience this. Early career professionals experience this. Even highly successful, high achievers experience imposter syndrome. 70% of us will experience imposter syndrome at some point in our working lives. So it's not just this little bit of self-doubt. It's actually a persistent feeling of self-doubt, incompetence, and inadequacy, despite evidence that shows otherwise. So you may be actually good at what you do. You know what you know. You are trained, you are qualified, you have years of experience, and yet you still feel as if you're not good enough at what you do. And it makes you feel guilty showing up, doing what you're doing, because you feel as if you're not worthy of the position that you're in. So it's actually it's not just a simple case of self-doubt. It can be a vicious circle, because the self-doubt will feed into guilt, and the guilt will feed into more self-doubt, and it just goes round and round.
How does someone know if it's simply self-doubt or if it is a full-blown case of imposter syndrome?
Yeah, with self-doubt, you feel it, and you bounce back easily. It's just a thought that, okay, I'm not sure if I can do this. And after a while, it's like, nah, it's fine. It's gonna be fine. With imposter syndrome, it's actually quite persistent, and you also experience high levels of stress and anxiety when you perform a particular task. So, for example, when you are given a new responsibility, you have a new project, self-doubt will kick in. You will think, okay, I'm not quite sure if I can do this. And you have a choice whether you would take it on, okay, or you might retreat because, okay, I'm not good enough to do this. You will retreat, and that will stagnate your career. And a lot of people who experience imposter syndrome will go down that route to say no, because they are afraid to take risks, and they are afraid that if they take risks, they might make mistakes, they might fail, stagnates their career, and so they stay in that position. For those people who choose to actually get on with it because it's their job, they have this sense of anxiety while they're doing it. They feel stressed about it, most of them will work really, really hard
Mm.
to the point that they burn themselves out because they feel as if they feel that if they don't overwork, then people will find out that they are frauds. You know
Wow.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's a mindset thing. They know what they are doing, but they feel as if they have to overperform.
Mm.
People who experience imposter syndrome also tend to experience maladaptive perfectionist tendencies, which means that even if they're already achieving excellent results, for them, nothing is ever good enough. So they never really achieve this sense of satisfaction when they achieve excellent results. They don't recognize it. They can only see the flaws. So they're not achieving the satisfaction. They're not happy with their work, and as a result, they are still doubting themselves. So even if they are achieving all these things, the cycle repeats itself. Even if they are gaining experience, they're gaining all these acclaim. That's why I'm saying there are people who are hugely successful.
Yeah.
They still feel imposter syndrome. They're still trapped in imposter syndrome because they've always doubted themselves. They couldn't see that they've achieved what they've achieved. They couldn't see the competence and the success that they've achieved. And that's why it's not a simple case of self doubt. And most of them, they get really frustrated. They undervalue themselves and they couldn't really appreciate their true worth.
Wow, this is incredible, and I know that there's a lot of listeners and people tuning in who are like, "Well, maybe that's a little bit of me." Sometimes I feel because we attract high performers, visionaries, leaders, world changers, and I think the bigger the dream, typically, the more often people are gonna be harsh on themselves and like be down on themselves and feel like they're not doing enough, so they have to work harder and they have to do more. And it's like that imposter syndrome kicks in because we want to change the world, and like, who are we, quote unquote, who are we to think that I can change the world, to think that I can actually make a difference. And so I think you're really speaking to a lot of people who are tuning in right now. I mean,
Yes, it's actually one of the common characteristics of imposter syndrome. This denial of competence, this denial of worthiness. And mind you, I'm not saying that perfectionism is a bad thing.
mm,
There are two kinds of perfectionism. You have adaptive perfectionism
mm,
and maladaptive perfectionism.
mm,
Adaptive perfectionism is when you actually strive for perfection. You do something, you learn from your experience, you hone your skills, and you improve day by day to achieve perfection. And that's absolutely fine. That's something to aspire for, to achieve our greatest possible self, right?
yes, yes,
You aspire for that kind of perfection. Maladaptive perfectionism, on the other hand, is that the kind of perfectionism when you become so rigid. You demand perfection from yourself and from others, and that when this perfection isn't achieved, you freak out, right?
yeah,
And actually, even when you achieve phenomenal success, nothing still ever seems good enough. You just simply focus on the flaws and imperfections rather than what you said at the start, all these little bits that actually contribute to success. So you have to differentiate between adaptive perfectionism and maladaptive perfectionism. We can strive and aspire for perfection, but we have to be adaptive. We
yeah.
go and learn in our experience and achieve perfection in our journey.
Yeah, this is gold. And I want to say that celebrating myself and acknowledging the progress and the good that I am doing, having a habit of that has made a big difference for me in not being so harsh and critical on myself, and probably triggering and activating that imposter syndrome, when I was first starting my journey. Would you say it's as simple as that to start overcoming it, or is there deeper that we really need to go to get to the root of it?
Well, when it comes to overcoming imposter syndrome, there are certain techniques that you need to learn. And one of the things that I share with my audience is getting to know your inner critic.
Mm,
A lot of the imposter syndrome that we experience comes from these inner critic messages that we have in our heads. And there are some self-help gurus who will actually encourage you to crush your inner critic or to banish it and, get rid of it, just ignore it. But this is something that I will completely go against. If you have these inner critic messages, telling yourself that I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy enough, I will always fail. Don't crush it. What you need to do is to actually explore your inner critic messages and get to know your inner critic. Because whether you like it or not, your inner critic is still part of who you are.
Yep.
It is a critic, it's an inner critic, it's still within you. And if you end up fighting it, if you end up having a battle with it, someone will get hurt. And that someone will be you, because it's
either way,
you.
because both
either way,
both parts of me.
it's you need to understand that these inner critic messages are coming from somewhere in your life. And what you need to do, instead of trying to fight it or trying to suppress it, what you need to do is to actually explore and understand where these messages are coming from. So in that way, you'll be able to see what you need to do next, right? You'll have a more informed decision of what would be your next steps. Because if you don't understand where these messages are coming from, you couldn't really make a clear decision on what you need to do next. So you have inner critic messages in your head, be familiar, explore, and I would say give it a bit of TLC. When I say TLC, I don't mean tender loving care. TLC is actually a questioning sequence that I developed. It actually comes from the rational emotive therapy in psychology. It's inspired by rational emotive therapy, and it encourages you to ask questions, to unpick and then explore the inner critic messages that you have. And TLC stands for: is it true? Is it logical? Is it constructive? So, for example, if you are telling yourself, I'm not qualified to do this. I mean, I don't have a piece of paper on podcasting, for example. I don't have a qualification to do this. Who am I to do this? First question, is it true? Is it true that you're not qualified, that you're not good enough to do this? You might have some training. It might not be a bachelor's degree. It might not be a PhD in podcasting. But you have all these years of training and experience as a communicator, as a speaker, as an interviewer. You know how to engage an audience. So you have to ask that first question: is it true? Is it true that you're not qualified to do this? And it's more likely than not that you will say, actually, I am qualified. For most people, the first question is actually enough to turn it around. But for some people, some of these beliefs, some of these inner critic messages are long held beliefs.
Yeah.
So whenever you try to answer this first question, you need to find evidence to support it. If you're saying that you're not qualified, have a look at your resume. See what's on there. It might not be a university degree, but you can see all your experiences and all the skills that you gained in your life that makes you the best person to do what you are doing right now. Yeah. So that is the first question. First question, ask, is it true?
Wow, so powerful. And I really love how it's enough to completely shift your perspective. It's like it's paying attention to the things that matter. It's like those little things that add up. Our brains can get caught up in a story and like pull evidence from the past or whatever else it might be, and say, because I sucked at baseball, well, I suck at podcasting, and I suck at relationships and whatever else it might be. And it's like, that's just not true. Like I may not have been good at baseball back then, but I get to create my relationship with podcasting. I get to create my relationship with relationships and people and communication. So I think it's important to ask, is that true as a start? And then the next question is it logical, right?
Yes. So that's the second question in the TLC questioning sequence. Is it true? Second question, is it logical? Because that's why it's really important to ask, is it true first? Because sometimes it can be true.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to be in denial if that inner critic is actually telling you something true. The truth is, the inner critic can be your friend. Sometimes it triggers anxiety, stress, fear, but
Mhm.
that's actually your mind's way of telling you, look, you have to pause a little bit and assess the situation because there are risks involved.
Mhm.
You might embarrass yourself, you might fail, you might hurt yourself. So it's actually your inner self's way of saying, hang on, pause for a minute and let's try to assess this. A lot of people will pause and get stuck there,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it shouldn't let it stop you. So ask the first question, is it true? Most of the time it's not true, it's a lie. But if it is true, so for example, you will say, I'm not really good at writing books. I'm quite rubbish at writing. And you ask yourself, is it true? And you look at your works like, yeah, actually, it's not great. So the next question is it logical?
Mm,
Okay, just because you are not good at what you do yet doesn't mean that you'll never be good at it ever,
mm,
or just because you aren't good at it yet doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it at all.
right.
So that's actually what the second question is for. Is it logical bit? Because sometimes it may be true, but our conclusion, sometimes you conclude, oh, I'm not good, so I shouldn't do it, or I might fail, so I shouldn't do it. There are risks involved, so I shouldn't do it. The logic question would be, just because you might fail, does it mean that you shouldn't do it? So
Mm,
that's the second question. You always have to apply logic. Just because you aren't good at this right now, it doesn't mean that you wouldn't be good at it at all. Because if logic will state that if you do something over and over and over again in time and with practice, with experience, you will gain the skills, and you will
yeah.
gain that the skill that you need to get better.
Yeah.
So the first question, if it is true,
Mhm.
ask the second question, is it logical? Is it logical? Because just because you are in the current state right now doesn't mean that it's going to be like that forever.
Right. Right. That's so powerful. I love it. So is it true is it factual, so to speak, of is the judgment or the assessment that I'm making about myself, is it true? Okay, well maybe it's partly true. I kind of suck at writing. Okay, is it logical that I shouldn't write because I suck at writing or I'm not yet the best, so to speak? This will be a little bit more kind in our words to ourselves, right? So is it logical that I shouldn't do this because I'm not quite where I want to be, where I expect myself to be, where I wish I would be? Well, no, like we'll get better over time. So I think it's really important to ask that as well. And then the last part is it constructive? Tell us about that.
Yes. So if you are saying, okay, I'm not good enough to start writing, uh, it might be true that you're still not good at writing. The second question, is it logical? Just because I'm not good at writing doesn't mean that I shouldn't do it at all. So what do you do next? Is it constructive? What can you do to get better? What do you need to do? How can you make this thought constructive?
Mm,
If you're not good at writing yet, what should you do? Should you get someone to help you out? Should you keep practicing
mm,
and keep honing your writing skills? What can you learn? What do you need to take a course? Do you need to have a mentor? Do you need to find a writing buddy who can help you and support you in your writing journey?
mm,
So the C bit is where you take action in a more constructive light. You take that message. It might be criticizing you, but it might be criticizing you to push you forward and make yourself better.
yeah.
If you still feel as if you're not good enough at this point, how can you make yourself better?
Mm,
So that's the constructive bit. TLC, is it true? Is it logical? Is it constructive? The constructive bit is important because that's what's going to drive you forward and improve yourself if you feel as if you need to gain more skills and confidence in what you do.
That's awesome. So the is it constructive is a check. If the first two if it wasn't going the way you wanted it to go, if you didn't feel empowered, then say, okay, what's the next step? How could I move in the direction? How could I get the support I need the coaching? How could I hire Emee to help me write my book? It's like it's that constructive next step instead of just, oh, nothing will work, I suck, and there's no hope, and it's like a kind of a downward spiral versus being open to a possibility, being open to an opportunity.
Absolutely. So that's why I keep telling my readers, imposter syndrome can actually work for you. Your inner critic messages can actually work for you. Don't try to fight it, because it's telling you these things. Okay, some of them are lies, but you can immediately spot that with the first question if it is a lie, right?
Yep.
But if it is actually true, you can find ways to look for a logical, constructive way to improve yourself if some of these inner critic messages are true.
Wow, that's amazing. So this TLC is a great check-in and course correction to make sure if we are having thoughts or beliefs about ourselves that are not getting us to where we want to go. It's really bringing us awareness and giving us a pathway to shift the direction and ultimately the result of our life and the results.
Yes.
Yeah.
And to be perfectly honest with you, the TLC technique will work really well for people who are open to have a dialogue with their inner critics. It is useful for people who can tap into that and can be honest with themselves when they ask these questions. The trouble is, some of these beliefs are long held beliefs that it can be quite difficult for some people to actually switch their perspective, because they've accepted these inner critic messages to be true. So, for example, they would say to themselves, I never do anything right. I'm a failure. And they will ask the first question, is it true? Is it true that you're a failure? Yes, it's true that I'm a failure. Is it logical that, just because you failed now, does it mean that you will fail all the time? And they will answer, if it is a long held belief, they will say, yeah, there's nothing else that I can do. I'm such a loser. I will fail no matter what I do. And they would ask the question, is it constructive? Yeah, okay, because I feel I shouldn't do anything. I should just stay in my cave and do nothing. So, sometimes the TLC technique might not work for those people who have these long held beliefs that they couldn't let go. And the way to remedy this is to actually have a third person involved. I call it the third person because the first person is yourself, the second person is your inner critic, and the third person is an outside person. Whether it is a mentor, a friend, a coach, to have that other person give you that other perspective when you are beating yourself up too much. When you use the TLC technique and use that in that dialogue, you will find that they will challenge you when you say, I'm a failure. Really? Are you sure? Haven't you seen what you've accomplished just a few days ago? You know what I mean? So if it is something that you've been holding on, telling yourself for 10, 20, 30 years, it would be so hard to let go of these inner critic messages. So you need to have another person involved if it is something that you couldn't really let go, and use the TLC technique as a guide for that conversation.
Wow, that's powerful, and I really love the conversation about our beliefs and how we see the world, our paradigm. Right, our paradigm is a summation of all the beliefs that we have that have us see and relate to the world in the way that we do. In terms of shaping and constructing new beliefs intentionally, so that we are empowered around the areas that we want to. Is there? I know there's been talk of like affirmations and journaling and declarations. I'm curious on your perspective on that. If you feel it's useful, how, when, why, etc.
Right. So are you asking about how to create new
Yeah,
new
new
beliefs?
beliefs. Yeah,
Right. In my books, I actually do talk a lot about envisioning your future perfect.
I love
You
it.
know, having this picture of your ideal perfect scenario,
Hmm.
because that will enable you to see what you want
Hmm.
rather than focus on what you don't want. So if you know what you want, you can direct your energy and your action towards achieving that vision of your future perfect.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would totally encourage people to do that. But in my books, you did mention that I use the PAME code.
Hmm.
PAME is actually a Greek word that means let's go together. It basically affirms that in life we need to share it with each other. You know,
Hmm.
we can share our journeys together. We don't have to carry our burden on our own.
Right.
So it makes life sweeter, our wins sweeter, and our challenges easier to bear when we share it with other people. But I actually also use the acronym for PAME to stand for purpose, action, momentum, and energy. And this is
Nice.
what I use as a guide um, for my intentions in my life. So what that means is for whatever I do, I always remind myself of my purpose and I ground myself in my purpose. I couple this with action because without action, your purpose is meaningless
Yep.
because it's just going to stay in your head. If it's just an intention without action, it's actually nothing.
Hmm.
So you start with your purpose, couple it with action, maintain momentum, take consistent action,
Yeah.
maintain momentum, and always uphold positive energy. You don't want to um, burn yourself out in the process. So have that positive vibe. Celebrate your little wins. Express gratitude. Share your blessings and learn to forgive.
Mm.
So I use the PAMI code in that way, and this is what I teach for all of my books. It all follows the PAMI code way of guiding your intentions and coupling it with action, maintaining momentum and um uplifting energy so we can achieve our ideal future scenario and become our greatest possible self.
That's awesome. I love it. So again, the acronym PAME stands for purpose, action, maintain momentum, and uplifting energy.
Yes. So it's
Awesome.
just
Awesome.
purpose, action, momentum, and energy.
Beautiful.
And as a Greek word, it means let's go together. So
I love
it's
it.
acknowledging that in life we can share our journeys together. Life is sweeter when we share it with other people.
Mm. I love it. Did you what? When did you discover that it was important for you to be together with people to have community? When did you discover that?
I used to be such a loner. I
No, you.
no. Well, the thing is, I don't know if people will believe this, but I actually am an introvert. I prefer being in isolation, being in a reflective state. I find it really stressful going to parties, networking events, stuff like that. I prefer to that's probably one of the reasons why I like to write because I can just stay in my own space and write and do it in that way and share it. People can read it in their own time
Yeah.
and so on. But since you asked when did I recognize the importance of support, I did have a breakdown. When did it start? In 2015, just after I returned from maternity leave, I actually did share that today, as part of the Mental Health Awareness Week here in the UK, I always thought that I was someone who's independent, someone who can just stand on my own. I can take care of myself. I've always been like that as a kid. Finished I graduated from university, flew here to the UK, left everybody back home, took care of myself here. And I just carried on. Didn't think I needed anyone until I fell off when I got absolutely burned out when I returned from maternity leave. And that's when I realized that how support is really important. That you cannot really take care of yourself on your own. It's really powerful to have that other person check if how you're doing, and give that energy when you're running low on your energy, because you cannot really have that full energy all the time. So yeah,
Yeah.
support is really important. My husband is incredible. I got the PAME code from him. He's Greek, by the way.
Wow.
So he
Wow.
always says PAME, PAME, PAME. So it really means let's go together.
It's
It
incredible.
means that in our journey we share our challenges, we share our wins.
Mm.
It doesn't necessarily have to be a romantic relationship. It could be a sister. It could be your parents. It could be a really good friend, or it could be a community. For some people, they actually find support through the networks that they have online.
Yeah.
Social media can be a little bit weird sometimes. You meet some odd people here and there, but they're really nice, genuine people that I've met online, who've shown that support, like yourself, Chris. You are one of these people that I've seen online that just reaches out to people, and provide this support to many others. You try to reach as many people as you can, and that kind of support is really important. We give energy, we receive energy, and that's I suppose that's the nature of our existence. And
Yeah.
yeah, support is really important, and we should tap into that.
Yeah, that's amazing, and I love what you said about it doesn't necessarily have to be romantic to get that support. I know for me personally, I've had my greatest growth with my girlfriend. She's like the woman of my dreams. I created her, I envisioned her, like you were talking about, journaled about her, spoke about her, and she was created in my reality because of my number one, like the obsession, a burning passionate obsession with creating her without attachment, right? I wasn't
Mm.
attached to when or how she showed up. I just knew she was on her way. And I showed up as if she was already in my life. So that was super powerful. And she's such a powerful mirror for me to see how I'm showing up. And she's able to be the grounded, logical, present person in my life when I'm, spinning out of control, so to speak, in that way, and vice versa. When she's stressed out or overwhelmed, I'm able to be that kind of nurturing and grounding energy that she needs. And that wouldn't be possible without a deep connection in values and friendship that we had before we had like a romantic relationship. Like that energy was there from the beginning, the chemistry, and it was the values. It was seeing each other eye to eye. And I think a lot of people don't have that, where they know who they are and the values that they have and connect with other people to do that. And I think that also might be another thing. I'm curious on your thoughts in terms of the imposter syndrome. Is people don't have a clear idea of who they are and what they stand for. So oftentimes they'll just try to be fitting into a mold, or follow a blueprint or a system that somebody else designed that works for them, but isn't
Mm.
necessarily them. That isn't necessarily the person and their heart and what they stand for. What are your thoughts on that?
Right. Yes. Yeah, I totally agree with that. For I'll give an example.
Sure.
For women who are in male-dominated industries, for example, a lot of women in male-dominated industries experience imposter syndrome, worse
Mm,
symptoms of imposter syndrome,
yeah.
because sometimes they have to put on a mask to fit in.
Yeah.
They might feel that they have to act in a certain way to fit in that industry, and as a result, they feel not inauthentic. Is that a word?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and and that sort of validates their being a fraud, because
Mm,
they are not showing up as their authentic selves. And quite often they will try to work extra hard to prove their worth, to prove their value, and they feel as if it's not really them. It's just the mask that they are wearing.
wow.
So it is something that um, people need to be aware of. They need to understand who they really are,
Mm.
know their worth, their value, and show up as their true selves, because that feeling of being a fraud, that feeling of you're showing up as a fake, not showing up as your authentic self, can really eat you up.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, it's I think that's the journey that we're on too, though, to really know who we are, to know thyself, I think is one of the biggest, longest lasting creeds, so to speak, of being a human being. It's like, know who you are, know what you stand for. So it's really incredible. And in your community, I'm curious, what caused you to create the PAME Code and creating the community, and what do you really provide there specifically?
Right. Okay. In the community, they're usually readers of my books,
Mm-hmm.
Change Your Life for Good, Imposter Syndrome Remedy, and Fear is Not My Enemy.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually do come together in the group to discuss some of the techniques and how we can apply it in our day to day living. To share our stories and our experiences together, because it just makes it more enjoyable when you share it with other people.
Yes.
So for example, right now we are in the middle of the 100 days of joy, so
Mm.
that's a full 100 days. But
Wow.
somewhere in the middle, we also started the 10 days of gratitude challenge, because what I said is that gratitude and joy actually go hand in hand.
Yeah.
When you practice gratitude, you cultivate more joy, and the more you cultivate joy, the more things that you would be, the more things will come up in your life to be grateful for.
Yep.
So we do this together. We have accountability as well. So at the start of the year, we had the healthy habits challenge, as part of, like, change your life for good, because that's the title for book one. We wanted to change our life, so we started our new year's resolutions. And I said, look, guys, um most of the time, after 3 or 4 days, people actually fall off their commitments to
Mm-hmm.
change in the new year. If you're lucky, you might end up staying until 14, 15 days. But the statistics will show that the majority of people will actually give up before the month ends. So by having that community, we can actually practice the techniques together. Some of the techniques that I share in the book are backed up by psychology. I'm a health psychologist, as a specialist area. So I know a lot about habit formation. I know a lot about how you can maintain changes in your life and sustain it in the long run. So I would tell them, look, the first step is not really just to do it and just stick to it and have the willpower to do it. What I would say, first of all, is to actually make a conscious decision and commitment to actually do it. It was the
Mm.
same with writing books. I always tell my coachees, the people I'm helping to write books, the first step is not to write the book, because some author, some coaches will say, if you want to write, just write. That's the only thing you need, just write. But I would say no. I know this from psychology. The very first step, if you want to change your life, if you want to, build confidence, if you want to overcome fear, if you want to write a book, the first step that you have to take is to make a conscious decision to do what you are supposed to do. That's the
Mm.
very first step.
Mm.
If you just do it out on a whim, it might your motivation and intentions might evaporate eventually.
Mm.
But if you make a commitment, a conscious decision, and the group, it becomes a public commitment,
Yep.
the group that will keep you accountable to that
Mm.
commitment,
Mm.
you have a better chance to actually stick to it and make it happen. So that's actually what the group is for. It's having that shared experience, whatever it is that we are trying to achieve, whether it is to change a habit, whether it's to overcome fear, whether it is to overcome imposter syndrome. Having that conscious decision and commitment, accountability, and support in the group increases their chances of achieving what they want to achieve.
Mm.
And with the group being the PAME code, it's living with purpose, action, momentum, and energy. we always remind ourselves of what our purpose is. So you don't just do things out on a whim, because I thought of this and so I'm going to do it. You're
Mm,
actually reminded that whatever you do, always make it aligned with your purpose. I always also remind them of their legacy. Always think of the end.
yeah.
How do you want to be remembered?
Mm,
On your deathbed, how will people remember you? If you have this purpose and you're coupling it with action, we are sharing our experiences in the group.
mm,
How do you think you will be remembered if tomorrow you won't be here anymore? So it's the group helps in that way. Whenever we have struggles, whenever
yeah.
we have all these inner critic messages, sometimes I invite them to share their inner critic message, especially for people who are coming after reading Imposter Syndrome Remedy.
Mm,
They will have these inner critic messages, and we talk about the TLC technique, and how they can use the TLC technique and other techniques like the flashlight technique, for example, to overcome these feelings of incompetence and inadequacy. So
mm,
it's really the group is really to apply the techniques in the book, and
mhm.
to have discussions and accountability and support if people need it.
Sounds like there's a lot of really great structure for people to grow, to break through any kind of blocks, fears, limiting beliefs, to focus on the positive, to be educated on how their mind and their belief system works, to really tap into their purpose, to take action. It really sounds like an amazing, empowering, life transforming group, Emee, and I love it. And I've seen it, and I love seeing it thrive. And what you got going on is incredible. And also, I love the question: how will you be remembered? If today was your last day, or if I even thought in my head, like if I had a weekly process of looking back over my week and asking how would I be remembered if I was like judged or whatever by this week. If the only thing, the only snapshot that people were given of my life was this last week, how would I be remembered? Would I be proud of that? Would that be the legacy that I'm committed to leaving in the world? If not, it's like some motivation on what would I do differently next week? How would I show up differently? How would I get the support that I need? How would I show up as my greatest possible self and leave that impact and that legacy that I know I'm capable of?
I love that. Yeah, I never thought of it, looking at it just for the week. Yeah, I think I'll apply that. I'll steal that. No, of course I will. I will cite you. But yeah, that's a really
You
interesting
can
thought,
have it.
because
No need to credit me. I think it's important as well. The like the weekly review. It's a process
mm,
of there's daily review, there's weekly, there's monthly, there's quarterly. There's lots of periods of review that you get to look at different snapshots of time. The daily review, it's you don't see as much progress and like what worked or didn't work. The week, you can start seeing a little bit more. The month, you can definitely see a little bit more. The year, oh my gosh, you can see if you were on track or off track. And so I think that's just a really powerful perspective and a question to come from of what's truly important. How will I
that
be remembered? Am I living my values? Am I proud? Am I aligned? Am I grateful, and am I acknowledging myself for living a life worth living, or do we need to change some things? And I think it's really great.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'll pick that up, and that's why it's really good having these conversations, because we always learn something new
Yeah.
from other people. I do remember I invited you in the PAME Code. We always invite inspirational people in the group. I think you were invited as part of the season of courage.
Yeah.
How to tap into courage and show up as your greatest possible self. I think that was your theme
Yep.
when you were there. But it's really good having these conversations, because we learn from other people's perspectives and other people's experiences. So right now we're having the 100 days of joy. We're having all these conversations with other life coaches and motivational speakers.
Mm.
We had the season of joy, a season of courage and gratitude. So having this conversation and interaction with other people, we learn a lot of new things by talking to other people.
Definitely. Definitely. I love it. So there's a ton of gold, ton of wisdom, ton of support in your group. Tell us again how they can get access to that and what are their next steps to continue their journey with you and me.
Right. People can actually visit the PAME Code website. That's
Okay.
just the PAME code.com. And you'll have links there to all of my books, Change Your Life for Good, Imposter Syndrome Remedy, and Fear is Not My Enemy. All of those books are available on Amazon, print, Kindle, or audiobooks. If people prefer to
Awesome.
listen by audiobooks, it's all there. The techniques that I share in the book are all based on applied psychology techniques, and I write it in a way that is simple and easy to apply. That's actually my goal. My purpose for writing the books is to actually share what we know from psychology, so people can use these techniques and apply it into their day to day lives. In the website, there's also a link to the Facebook group. And if people would like more personal one to one support, I also offer coaching. I actually do love coaching. The slots are limited. Um, but from what I've experienced with current clients, it's really amazing to see their transformation. Especially when I do the TLC technique with them, you can see all these light bulb moments. They would say, 1 minute they would say, no, I can't do that. And I would ask, is it true that you can't do that? Yeah, it's true. I don't have the skills, I don't have the qualifications. Are you sure? Is it true? Have you seen your resume? What do other people say about you? And once they start having that conversation, that dialogue, you can see the light bulb moments. And I find it absolutely fascinating to witness it right before my eyes.
Yeah.
Things that used to be just theory, and to see it in practice, it's absolutely amazing. So people can reach out in that way. And if they would like to join our Facebook group, the PAME Code Facebook group, we have a really friendly, vibrant community in there. If you would like to apply the techniques, change your habits, overcome imposter syndrome, or overcome your fear, if you want to pursue something and you're feeling quite scared and need to cultivate that courage, we'll be there to support you. And again, applying techniques in psychology to help you achieve the goals that you want in life.
Emee, you are incredible. Thank you so much for sharing. Everyone, definitely go join the group. Visit the website, the PAME Code. That's THEPAMECODE.com. And keep following this powerhouse. There's so much greatness coming through you right now. And I know even more coming from you, Emee. So keep impacting your community, empowering and uplifting people. You're doing amazing things. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Chris.
We'll see you soon, okay?
Bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.